Goats. Goats are really strange and loud. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic. Goats are one of the oldest domesticated animals in the world, and scientists have found evidence of goat farming from more than 10,000 years ago. They were much admired for their meat and milk. In fact, they are believed to be the first animal we milked. Our relationship with goats continues to be close. The ancient Egyptian pharaoh Sepharnes had 2,234 goats buried with him when he died. Can you imagine a tomb filled with over 2,000 screaming goats? Abraham Lincoln had 2 pet goats named Nanko and Nanny, and his son used to harness them to a chair to have them pull him through the White House. In a small town in Texas, they have elected 3 generations of goats as their mayor. Their first goat mayor, Clay Henry, was said to drink 40 beers a day. Of course, they haven't always been appreciated. The devil himself is often represented as a goat, probably originating from the Greek god Pan, who was part goat and part human. In fact, the term scapegoat comes from an ancient Jewish ritual where 2 goats were chosen. One was slaughtered and the other one had all the sins of the community transferred to it, and it was let go. The curse of the Billy Goat was placed on the Chicago Cubs in 1945 after William Billy Goat Cianis was not allowed to bring his pet goat into Wrigley Stadium. As he was being kicked out, he shouted that the Cubs would not win anymore. The Cubs haven't won a National League pennant since, nor won a World Series since 1908. There have been many attempts to stop the curse, including sending the Cubs manager a rotting goat's head in 2013. The reason goats exist so prominently in our cultural history is probably because they are so intelligent. Or screamy. A recent study on object permanence with dwarf goats, which involved having the goat follow food from one hiding place to another, showed that goats were the highest scoring non-primate mammals. They even outscored human babies. In another study, scientists tested goats' cognitive abilities. The goats had to pull on a lever and lift it with their mouth in order to receive a food reward. They did surprisingly well and were even able to remember the process 10 months later. The researchers believe that the goats are able to learn so quickly because they have to adapt to harsh environments and new habitats. Unfortunately, this ability often makes goats an invasive species. In Australia, they were introduced in 1788 and have since flourished. They now do $25 million of damage a year. In the Galapagos Islands, sailors would often drop off their goats on the islands and return later to eat them. However, the goats got busy, and by the 1960s, there were over 40,000 of them. They ate everything in their path, and the native tortoises couldn't compete. The tortoises' numbers nosedived to just 15 in the same time period. By 1997, there were over 100,000 goats destroying the island's habitat. So in an effort to save said habitat, we declared war on goats. Known as Operation Isabela, the project involved recruiting snipers to systematically shoot and eliminate all goats in sight from helicopters that patrolled the islands. Just to reiterate here, they sniped goats from a helicopter. Recently. This operation ended in 2006. It went well for a while, but then the goats got smarter and started hiding in caves and under bushes. So, they recruited a goat, which they named the Judas Goat. With good reason. They fixed it with a GPS tracker, and since goats are incredibly social animals, the Judas Goat would track down its goat buddies, whom the snipers would then shoot. They would keep the Judas Goat alive and release it again to repeat the process. The goats have been reduced to almost nothing, and the tortoises have rebounded to almost 1,000 animals in the wild. But brains are not the only way that goats have adapted to their environments. For starters, goats have rectangular pupils. They have developed this, along with their eyes being on either side of their head, because this allows them almost 360-degree vision along the horizontal axis. In other words, they can't see above and below themselves very well, but when munching away in a field, it's pretty hard to sneak up on them. Unless you're an eagle, in which case you can pick them up and drop them, which is what eagles do. Eagles are scary. They are also incredible climbers, allowing them to escape predators and obtain new sources of food. Here are some wild goats in Italy climbing on a dam so that they can lick salt off the stones. Their hooves are split in two, each of which can act independently. They are cushy in the center so they can mold to whatever surface they are climbing. They can also jump over 5 feet in the air, which is why you'll often find them in unusual places. There are so many cool types of goats, but I will just pick a few of my favorites. Let's start with the fainting goats. They aren't actually fainting. They are myotonic goats, which have a genetic disorder called myotonia congenita that, when the goats are startled, causes their skeletal muscles to contract and then slowly release. It doesn't hurt the goats. In fact, they often keep munching away on their food while they're frozen. Goats in Morocco climb the Arginia tree, balancing on their tiny branches so they may eat the fruit the tree grows. Farmers are happy to let them because they then collect the seeds they poop out and press them to make valuable argan oil. Yep, the stuff in your moisturizer. This is a GEEP. They are very rare because goats have 60 chromosomes and sheep only have 54. For this reason, the GEEP usually don't survive through embryonic development. But this one did, and has a middle-of-the-road 57 chromosomes. Meet Thomas Thwaites, who spent 3 days living with a herd of goats in the Swiss Alps so he could investigate their behavior and get away from it all. Finally, I can't do goats without throwing in at least a few screaming goats. It just never gets old. The reason for their human-like screams is varied. Every goat has a unique voice, so not every goat can make that distinct call. Experts have noted them doing it when they want to be fed, to communicate with their young, or if they're not happy about being handled by humans.
¿Qué pasa en su corral? Zapatero, ¿qué opina usted del gobierno de Zapatero? Pues igual que yo. ¿Y qué opina usted? ¿Qué opina usted del gobierno canario?
What animal should I check out next? Please let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for new episodes of Animalogic every week. Thank you for watching.